Hello everyone, this is part 2 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list video. Number 79 on my top 100 favorite horror movie of all time is Ringu from 1998. You're all familiar with the American version 2002 Ring remake. Before that, there was an original called Ringu, which in my opinion I thought was far more superior and way better than the 2002 remake. I thought the characters were better, it had a better atmosphere, the characters were more interesting in the original. The remake, not so much, but I'm not really mentioning the remake so much in this part of the video. Also, in the American remake, you'll remember how the movie ended, which was CGI, which I thought was poorly done. In the original Japanese version, I thought the effect was way more practical, way more realistic, and really scary. It's the kind of film that makes you afraid to ever watch, well, if that was the 90s, a VHS tape. Makes you afraid to watch a movie again or TV. Number 70 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Dog Soldier from 2002. It's about a group of soldiers from Scotland that are on a training exercise. During the training exercise, they find dead bodies out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Then they are stuck in this cabin, hunted by werewolves. Kind of like Evil Dead meets the Wolfman. Number 77 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list of all time is Blade and Blade 2. The first Blade film came out in 1998. Back in that time period, comic books of the 90s were not doing so well. They were not being taken seriously and were only marketed thinking that was only a kid's thing. Before The Dark Knight, the MCU movies, and the DC Extended Universe, Blade established what superhero films have become today, better, popular, and awesome. I never really read any Blade comics, but for what I've heard that in the comic book he's way different than in the movie, because in the movie Wesley Snipes made it his own character rather than copying what Blade was in the comic book, which is what made it awesome. He's a martial artist, a weapons specialist who really knows how to kick butt. The character Blade is half human and half vampire. He doesn't have any weaknesses except for the thirst. In the movie Blade, Blade's mother was bitten by a vampire while she was pregnant with him. He was born half human and half vampire. He doesn't have any of the weaknesses that vampires have. His only weakness is the thirst. What I love about this film is it has great action scenes and great fight scenes and great choreographed fight scenes. They are just so awesome and so well done that it feels really great and practical. Wesley Snipes does a great job as Blade, that he really did a great job making the character his own rather than copying what the comic book was. Blade is a vampire hunter that goes around killing vampires, and he's also searching for the vampire that killed his mother. Deacon Frost is an evil jerk vampire that really wants nothing but Blade, so he can use him to become a vampire blood god. Chris Christopherson plays Whistler. He's funny, he's awesome. He has a lot of funny one-liners in the film. He's basically Blade's side character who helps him with weapons. One of my favorite scenes in the film is the opening scene when Blade saves a man in a vampire nightclub underground, and the opening has a great techno to it, and when Blade comes in shooting and killing vampires, it's just so awesome. As the years have gone on, I feel like people have forgotten that Blade is what really started making the superhero genre more popular and better. Blade 2 came out 4 years later, considered one of the best Marvel sequels of all time, and again, just like the first Blade film, no one really gives this enough credit or talk about it as much as they used to back in the day when these movies came out. In Blade 2, he teams up with the Blood Pack that were vampires that were trained to kill him. So instead, he teams up with them to track down the Reaper, fighting advanced vampires that are more advanced than regular vampires. They're not immune to garlic, silver, no bullets. Their only weakness was sunlight. Just like the first movie, I love the fight scenes, except that they're more brutal and tense in the first movie. The film was directed by future Academy Award director Guillermo del Toro. He would go on to direct films like Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, and The Shape of Water. One thing I love about this movie is I love the look of the vampires. It's like he was making a modern-day Nosferatu remake, but in Marvel. How they get out of their comfort zone, try to change up vampires, instead of them being killed by garlic, silver, and bullets, which they're immune to, the only thing they're not immune to is the sunlight. Movie I was not very crazy about at all, but I'm going to do a video about that in the future. 76 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Saw and Saw 2. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really a big fan of the whole torture porn genre, but these were good movies. Well, I think the first two are the best, and after that, well, the sequels were just like really made more for like money rather than just trying to come up with better movies. Saw is not a gore fest, despite the title. It's more of a psychological film where a guy is torturing his victims because he doesn't necessarily kill them. The character Jigsaw, he captures them, he tortures them, and forces them to kill themselves. The film has a great twist ending that you did not see coming. I'm not even going to spoil it. Just go watch it and see it and be surprised. From 2005. This movie came out 1 year after the success of the first Saw movie. Out of all the Saw sequels, this is the best out of all of them. This movie is that even though it's a sequel, like only Jigsaw from the first film comes back, but it doesn't really like have most of the same characters from the first movie. It kind of like sets a new like tone, a new set of characters that we get to know. Or plays a cop whose son is kidnapped by Jigsaw. He's stuck in a warehouse with criminals that Donnie Wahlberg's character framed and arrested for crimes they did not commit. Tobin Bell's performance in this film, playing reverse psychology on Donnie Wahlberg's character, trying to prove a point to him that he's never been a good cop, a good father, or a good person in general. What really horrified me about this film was the fact that his son was like kidnapped and stuck in a warehouse with criminals. That just really like made me like horrifying thinking about like what a parent can go through something like that, seeing your own son kidnapped and locked up with criminals that you're responsible for. Killed him because he was the son of the cop that they were arrested by. Five of my top 100 favorite horror movie list of all time is 1 Hour Photo, directed by Mark Romanok, if I'm saying his name right, with Robin Williams. It's kind of debatable on whether or not this is a horror movie or not, but I really consider this a horror movie. Robin Williams plays Cy Parrish, who works at a 1 Hour Photo place. He plays a character who is very disturbed, sad, depressed, emotional because he has no life, no family, no friends, and he's just like socially awkward anytime he talks to the family that he has an obsession with that he barely even knows that well from doing their photos throughout the years. Depending on whether you would say Robin Williams is like the bad, he's not really the bad guy, he's just a weird guy. Kill anybody in the movie. Like one of Robin Williams' best films like ever because despite what you're used to think of like how like he's the funny guy, but Robin Williams was just really a great actor. He could do anything. He was a well-rounded actor who could do anything. He was funny, dramatic, a serious actor. He was just a great actor, well-rounded. For my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Friday the 13th. I mean, granted, it's not as great as Halloween, but it's still worth watching. It was probably like one of the first like Halloween ripoffs because Halloween is what made the slasher genre popular, even though it was not the first slasher film. And it was also basically the first ripoff to Halloween, but done in the summertime. 7. Jason Voorhees drowned at Camp Crystal Lake. Years later, the camp is reopened, and there's a killer killing the counselors returning back to Camp Crystal Lake. I'll admit the film is a little outdated, and also that, plus this is the 40th anniversary, it doesn't really hold up as well as like Halloween does. For instance, that they should have cut that would not have affected the film was seeing the whole process of a girl making coffee. Like, really? That really could have been cut out. It would not have bothered, like, well, at least we know how to make coffee. Thanks a lot. This movie, it shocked me of who the real killer was because before I saw the first movie, I saw one of the sequels first. And I thought, okay, Jason's the killer in this film, but little did I know at that time before I saw the first film of who the first killer was in the first movie until later on the sequels, Jason shows up. Not spoiling it, go watch it and you'll see who the killer is, and it's going to be very surprising. 3 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Wicker Man from 1973. Yes, there's an original Wicker Man, and no, I am not going to compare the remake, and I am not going to do any of those online memes or parody videos of the "No, not the bees" that's been done to death. Not in this video. This, I'm just sticking to the original Wicker Man. To be the Citizen Kane of horror movies. Well, it's really more of a murder mystery leading up to a horror up until the end of the film. It was the first folklore film, and that this was considered Christopher Lee's favorite film he ever did because at this point, he was tired of the Hammer Dracula films that he wanted to do something different. He loved doing this film so much that he said he did it for free. It's great. I can't even explain it. You have to go watch this movie to see like how great the finale is. And also, number 72 in my top 100 favorite horror movie list is They Live from 1987, directed by John Carpenter. This film really establishes and defines what Reaganomics was back in the 80s. Movie today, you can compare this movie to today's society on how, like, with economic collapses and also how, like, the rich are getting richer, the middle class are disappearing or getting poor. It was a famous wrestler who plays a drifter, drifting into town looking for a job. In between him and Keith David that he's trying to force him to wear the glasses of trying to show him of what to see, but he doesn't believe him. He keeps fighting him and fighting until eventually he finally puts the glasses on. It's like one of the longest fight scenes you'll ever watch in like movie history of a fight scene. Also like very funny, has some cheesy moments. I remember before I saw this movie, I knew about the famous line, chewing bubblegum. I am all out of bubblegum. My top 100 favorite horror movie list is Pumpkinhead from 1988, directed by Stan Winston. It's a revenge type film where Hendrickson plays a farmer whose son was killed by a couple teenagers by accident. He goes to a witch wanting revenge, and then he becomes a pumpkinhead. Winston was a special effects guy who did special effects for films like Alien, Predator, Jurassic Park, and the Terminator movies. Great atmosphere horror film. This is one of them. The film and the look of it looks spectacular and great. Spooky setting. The title being called Pumpkinhead, the monster really does not look like a pumpkin. He just looks like a regular alien. It was in 1988 that special effects in films were getting better. The sad part is, around the time when the 80s were coming to an end, the 90s just ruined practical effects with CGI. An underrated horror film that deserves a lot more credit than what it is. Number 70 on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Reanimator from 1985. It's based off H.P. Lovecraft's story, Reanimator. A comedy that is sick, disgusting. Holmes does a great job as Dr. Herbert West. Frankenstein feel to it. The part is, he brings back people from the dead who want to steal his invention, his ideas. Like as zombies. My top 100 favorite horror movie list is Basket Case from 1982. It's a cheesy movie about two brothers that were separated. Bradley carries a basket with his brother in it, setting revenge on the doctor who separated them. Motion effects are great and awesome and cool. Well done. It's completely insane anytime Dwayne tries to have a social life. Despite how weird, crazy, and bizarre this film is, the relationship between the brothers is pretty good. When you take the horror stuff out of this movie and just focus on the two brothers and make it a melodrama, because you have two brothers, they were conjoined twins, separated. One was born regular, the other one was born different, but despite that, they have a great bond. 100 favorite horror movie list is Freaks from 1932, directed by Todd Browning. This one also very debatable about being a horror because it's not, it's a horror film really up until the building ending climax. Todd Browning said he based this film off of his real life experience growing up in the circus. Is that these were like real circus performers. They were not actors, and let me tell you, for circus performers who were not actors, they were really good. Circus performers too, like you had a character with no arms and legs, and yet he still was able to light his own cigarette. Cleopatra, But Cleopatra wants to only marry Hans only just for his money, so that way she can go be with her lover Hercules. It came out, it was not well received by critics and audiences, and it was a box office failure. It ruined Tom Burke's career as a film director. This was one of his last films he directed, and never directed much films after that. Considered a classic and one of the greatest films of all time. They're trying to save Hans from Cleopatra from poisoning Hans. It's a great anticlimactic ending where she gets what she deserves in the end, but I'm not spoiling what happens. It's freaky. Out is not to treat these people differently. Just because they look different, it doesn't mean that they're just like everybody else. By Horror Story. Season 4 Freak Show was inspired from this movie. 7, my top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Old Dark House from 1932. If you're in the mood for a weird, chilling, bizarre, creepy, scary atmosphere horror movie, this is it. Of a success with Frankenstein, and just like in Frankenstein, playing a non-talking monster, instead he plays a mute butler in this film. The Bride of Frankenstein, he's great and really creepy in this movie. As you all know, who played the older Rose in the Titanic film from 1997, she was in this movie. This is a simple, straightforward story. It's about these group of people, and they find this weird, creepy, abandoned, haunted house out in the middle of nowhere. And they meet this weird, bizarre, strange family. Next on my top 100 favorite horror movie list is Jacob's Ladder from 1990. Psychological thrillers or psychological horror. This is a great one. For a Vietnam veteran who has a regular life, a girlfriend, a job. He was married, but he divorced after the death of his son, which drove him and his wife apart. A lot of hallucinations, as if like the army like drugged him with something to make him see things that are not there. Crazy. Robbins have hallucinations of his son in Vietnam. Theory where the government gave him some kind of drug, and that's why he's experiencing all these hallucinations. George Costanza on Seinfeld does a great and fantastic job playing a serious lawyer. Case or evidence or trial that could help win a case against the government to it that you did not see coming. My top 100 favorite horror movie list is The Omen from 1976, directed by Richard Donner. As you know, Richard Donner would go on to direct Superman, The Goonies, and the Lethal Weapon movies. Child. Omen, Gregory Peck plays Robert Thorne, who is a politician. His wife has a baby, but the baby dies at childbirth. Satanist, and he does not tell his wife that their real son died, so he decides to raise this baby as his own. The baby's name is Damien. A few years later, Damien's 5 years old. Robert Thorne is an ambassador of Britain. And a lot of weird, bizarre events keep happening, like the nanny kills herself, and a priest and a photographer go to Robert Thorne telling him, knowing that Damien is not his real son and that he is the Antichrist. He doesn't really do anything in this film. When you see him, you think that he's going to be a kid possessed by the devil, but that's not really the case. It's not like in The Exorcist when Reagan was possessed by Satan. He has like this like evil, devilish like look in his eye, like you know that he's not a normal child, and you know that he's the Antichrist. The one like killing people who gets in the way of Damien. And very memorable and crazy death scenes, like for example, the part when the nanny hangs herself at Damien's party, that is just horrifying to see something like that. Priest death scene is just crazy. There's also a scene where David Warner's character's head is like chopped off by a slide of glass, and it's like so like well done with like a practical effect that when the head is chopped off, that there's not even blood. You would think that there'd be blood splattering, but not the case. Score by Jerry Goldsmith. It's one of the most horrifying, creeping soundtracks in a horror film you will ever hear. And the very shocking thing is that it won an Academy Award for Best Score. And it's hard to believe that, especially how when you like translate what it's saying, Hail the Antichrist, you would think that there'd be some conspiracy theory at the Oscars. That they were very big on Satanist films, Antichrist films. Their favorite horror movie list is American Psycho from 2000. A young, healthy, wealthy, successful businessman on Wall Street. But yet, he's a very sick, twisted psychopath. And music, I noticed like something different about it, something that I did not catch the first time. For film, this is for you. If not, skip it. My top 100 favorite horror movie list is House on Haunted Hill, directed by William Castle from 1959. Husband who invite five strangers for a party to stay overnight and pay him $10,000. Houses and tricking the guests to believe like what really happened, what did not happen, thinking that ghosts were responsible for it. Annoying that you could say that she was like an early scream queen for her time. Humor that's just not meant to be taken seriously. Time. Down, try to take it seriously, but unfortunately, you'll end up realizing there's no logic to it. All it is just a fun ghost movie. Good cartoon. Despite that, Scooby-Doo came out 10 years later. He breaks the fourth wall by talking to the audience as if he's like getting the audience involved, making them believe that they're in the movie. Maybe his best movie of all. Your favorite horror list is The Silence of the Lambs from 1991, directed by Jonathan Demme. That was my snake voice of Hannibal Lecter. Oy, I don't know if I should keep this here or edit that out. Beans and a nice glass of Chianti. Hopefully that's better. It's about Clarice Starling, an FBI rookie agent who's on the track of finding serial killer Buffalo Bill. Find him because Hannibal Lecter was your skin, and Hannibal Lecter scares you psychologically. Even though Hannibal Lecter is the scariest part and the main focus of the movie, but Buffalo Bill is sick, twisted, and crazy, and just, he is just really scary, and he's just really, like, creepy and sickening. Besides Hannibal Lecter, awards and won 5 awards. Best Actor, Actress, Screenplay, and Director. 100 favorite horror movie list is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1931. The film is about Dr. Jekyll trying to find a serum, having an obsession with trying to alternate personalities. It changes his personality. Or Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. When he's Dr. Jekyll, he's smart, intelligent, kind, caring, loving person. Just completely different. He's a jerk, he's a bastard. It was the first horror film to win an Academy Award. If you love gothic films, this is a good atmosphere gothic film setting. Horror movie list is Slither from 2006, directed by James Gunn. It's a sick, twisted horror sci-fi comedy that is attacked by aliens, and people are turned into mutant monsters. From premise.